Another year in the mountains and another set of lessons learned. This year was the most challenging one so far, and what made it so is that I had no intention of going through the experience that I did. For years, I've defined myself as someone who moves fast in the mountains. I've put so much of my identity and self-worth into being a mountain athlete. But this year, I injured my knee, and so I couldn't go out and move fast. I couldn't do the one thing that I've relentlessly chased for the past 5 years. So what did I do? Well, I went into the mountains with a knee brace, lots of sadness, and lots of questions. I spent a bunch of time alone, deeply pondering my existence and my purpose. I went on a journey, this trip that restructured how I approach the conscious experience. This film is about that trip. Before I jump in, I feel that a disclaimer is necessary. While the majority of this film is pretty chill, the start is most certainly not, and it might not be for everyone. It's an honest look into me going through the most difficult time of my life, and it starts at the bottom of the darkest pit I've ever dug myself into. If watching that isn't for you, I encourage you to bypass the first chapter using the timeline below.
All right, hello. This is not going to be pleasant. I am about 2 months into this knee injury, left knee. Same thing that happened 3.5 years ago. And today's a particularly bad pain day. It comes and goes, and it's been generally trending out of the deepest hole that it's been at, but today's not a good day. Today's a bad day. And so I just wanted to kind of explain the situation of my life. Essentially, I've spent my entire adult life pursuing one thing, and that one thing is being able to move fast in the mountains. And I've pursued it just kind of relentlessly at the great expense of my wallet, at the great expense of relationships, and I don't have any kind of balance in my life. It's fully been pursuit of moving fast in the mountains. And since I've structured my entire life on this one pinnacle, around this one thing, to have that taken away and to not be able to do that simply because, if I do it, I might actually rip my knee apart beyond repair. It's been the greatest challenge of my entire life. It's been the hardest. The last 2 months have had some highs, but for the most part, it's been bad. And I've gone through the lowest low ever that I've ever experienced. It's crushed me. It's really hard. And it's just kind of wild how absolutely neutral I am towards everything. Like there's no great joy. It's just like despair and sadness and anger. And I just don't care. I don't care about my life. I really don't. Part of me still does. Part of me is still intrigued and fascinated by existence, but a bigger part of me is just like, it doesn't fucking matter. I've kind of just hit the bottom of, what I hope's the bottom of hopefully my whole life. I didn't want to be here. I didn't ask to be here, but this is where I find myself. No prospects, no future, no desires, no goals, just pain and anger. That's what it is. It'll be interesting to see this story of the next several months. See how I get out of it. It's a 2-step forward, 1-step back kind of process, man. 2 days ago, I went and climbed some mountains. And I thought that I was ready, but it appears that maybe I wasn't. I'm definitely not as bad as I was at the bottom, but I don't know if I'm better than I was a week ago. It's just, imagine the one thing that means the most to you in your life, that you spend the most time pursuing, that gives you the most pleasure and makes you the happiest person you can be. And imagine every time you went and did that thing, what followed was several days of constant pain and your body just saying, ow, ow, pain, no, bad. That's what my situation is like. But it's not as bad as the darkest day. In early July, I went to Missouri and was starting to get back into running very slowly. Running literally just like a couple hundred yards at a time, very easily. And after one of those walk-run sessions, my knee just wasn't having it. And for the next 5 days, there was a constant searing pain that would flare up with random movements. There wasn't any pattern to it. There wasn't any rhyme or reason that I could figure out of what set it off. And waking up to that 5th day, I couldn't handle it. I just didn't know what to do. And for the entire day, I felt like I was gonna cry. And the reason was because I have spent my entire life and my entire existence pursuing moving in the mountains. And so sitting there in Missouri with this tremendous knee pain, my entire existence kind of just fell through the floor because I could not do the one thing that I had spent my entire life pursuing. Taking away the one thing that my entire life was based around made me realize that I'm just left with nothing. There's no other purpose to my existence that has quite as strong of an impact as moving fast and being in the mountains. And that was a huge pill to swallow, and I just couldn't do it. And so I felt like I was gonna cry all day, and I went to the darkest place that I'd ever been in my entire life. I reflected and thought a lot about death, the fragility of existence, and all of these thoughts just started to spiral as I lost control of all feeling of control in my life. You know, at a certain point, it was just like so overwhelming that I just didn't know what to do. And so I did the only thing that I could to control my situation, and that was to focus on the present moment and put all of my attention into the present. Because by focusing so intently on my immediate environment and the immediate, second of existence in which I was occupying, I didn't have the capacity to think about all of these great problems that had suddenly reared their head in my mind. At this point, it's been almost a month, and I'm still digging my way out of that dark place. I'm turning all of that sadness into some kind of growth, but it's a slow process. But for the time being, I'm doing a lot of focusing on the present because I glimpsed that the future's just not certain. And I had this revelation that my stream of consciousness and my existence could just end. And it wouldn't be surprising and it wouldn't be uncalled for. It's just expected that will happen at some point. People die all the time for all kinds of reasons. And so, what really is there besides this present moment? What are you left with if not the now? And so there's an incentive to not take stuff for granted and to just experience as much as possible. That's really what this injury has taught me. One of the things. The other thing will probably be patience on a level that I think is unmatched in my life.
Nothing teaches patience quite like an overuse injury. For months, the first thing that I've thought about after waking up has been my knee. Such a large part of my focus throughout the day is evaluating sensations coming from that area and trying to figure out if the stimulation I'm feeling is pain or if it's something I shouldn't be concerned about. Since it takes such a long time to heal, the real challenge is having the discipline to balance desires versus reality and to continually make the conservative call even when I'm feeling good. Since I was forced to mellow out, I took up fishing. It seems not only incredibly practical for me to be able to catch my own food, but it's also a very low intensity activity. Now I'm very fortunate that my late grandfather was a lifelong fisherman, and so I had all the tools that I needed. I did not, however, have any knowledge about any aspect of fly fishing. I'm not sure that I've ever been quite so bad at something as an adult, but also had such a strong desire to learn, and learn I did. I learned how to not lose flies on every cast. I learned how to not snag on every single plant next to me. And, perhaps most importantly, I learned that the fish can see you coming and they generally avoid the large creature looming above their home. After so much failure, I was stoked to finally catch my first fish.
Oh my God. Wow. What? He's so tiny. First fish. That was the first time I've ever caught something fly fishing as an adult. What an experience. What a thrill. That was so cool. Whew. Gotta work on getting the hooks out. That's the part that I wasn't ready for. Oh. Ooh, okay. Gotta tie a tippet on. This is just the leader. I guess I lost my tippet last time. That's what snapped off. Oh well. Oh no. Oh no. Snagged on the island. That's not good. Walk across the mud. Here we go. Well, now I can fish from the island. I kind of wanted to be doing that earlier, but I just couldn't get over here. Oh! They want it. Come on. Yeah! Call it. Ooh, wow. Oh, God. Hello. Goodbye. Fish until the sun goes down. Stoked on it, man. I'm hooked.
With the basics down, I felt that I was ready to blend fishing with my personal strength, getting to remote places that no one goes. Now, I'm certainly not a good fisherman, but if I'm the only fisher person who visits that lake that year, I should be able to catch something. Now, my knees still placed a limit on what I was able to do in a day, but it was strong enough for me to get lost in the mountains so long as I traveled slowly. And so I shouldered my overnight gear and meandered my way through the mountains in search of a larger body of water. I don't know what I was expecting from the first alpine lake that I visited, but I was absolutely blown away by how all-time my first experience was.
Wow. Good fish.
There's a primordial enchantment about the whole process of fishing in alpine lakes. Approaching a lake and trying to determine if there are fish, and if so, where might they be? Moving my focus to the end of my line and into the water as I try to mimic the bugs of nature and get a bite. And then finally, playing the fish until I'm able to reel it in. It's a game that we as humans have been playing for tens of thousands of years, and it's an act that resonates with the core of my being. Time flies by as I cast my fly by, and having that deep of an experience in these serene mountain settings was exactly what I craved during the worst part of my injury. At this point, my knee was still a constant companion of the mind, but giving focused attention to where I was numbed the pain and put a smile on my face. I was getting stronger, and I was able to climb mountains again without too much pain, and so ambition took over, and I started to put bigger objectives back on the table. Combing through my options, I felt that finishing all the remaining 13ers in the Sawatch range seemed like a viable objective. I had already climbed most of those gentle giants, and finishing the remaining 30 or so seemed doable before the season started to shift. And so I set out to finish my favorite range in my new favorite style, riding ridges all day before dropping down to catch my dinner.
That's 100% a dead fish. There must be fish up here. This ridge got kind of gnarly, and I got to do this like fourth class down climb above this massive cliff with snow, so everything's a little slick. I'm not feeling like today is a day I want to do this. So, oh well. Fishing, had my two fish clean sitting on that rock right there, and it came to be done, and one of the fish was gone, and I was like very confused. But then I looked over here and there's like this freaking minx thing. I think it took my fish. Bro, that is not chill. It's back. Look at this. What are you doing, dude? You trying to find another fish? I put it away so you can't take it. Look at this. Yeah. Bugger off, dude. Blow me down, wind. Oh, blow me over. What are we at? 91. this is what that looks like. It's been a pretty wild day. I've done a lot, and I'm certainly very tired, very dehydrated, quite hungry. I think for a second there I was getting a little bit of heat stroke. So I'm floored. I'm out. But I wouldn't say that I'm suffering. Previous summers, previous years doing this, I think I'd say that getting to this point of just being completely wrecked and then having to keep pushing. In the past, I would have classified that as suffering, but it's not. It's really not. I think for it to be true suffering, you can't be the one in control of your situation. What's truly hard is being in a situation and being helpless and not being able to control where your life is going. That's when it's really hard. But right now, that's not the case. I'm able to write my own destiny. It seems like this infinite well of motivation and strength to just have just the revelation that when things get hard, they're not really hard. It's all in my head. As long as everything's working right and I'm not legitimately dying, I can keep going. No big deal. Yeah, reflections. 9,500 feet in to my 4th day in a row. Stokey Balokey. Ooh, I'm excited to open a can of beans. There's Sayer's benchmark. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. I have entered a state where if I stop moving before I get back to my van, that would be the end of me. I currently cannot feel my right hand, and everything is wet, but it's still functioning, and I'm so close to the summit that I'm gonna do it. No mistakes. I think if I make a mistake now, it'll be one of the last ones I ever make. It's not like a grim thing, it's just like the reality, right? What a very strange experience it is to know that I just can't stop moving. I really gotta take a leak, but I don't want to take the gloves off, but I just can't figure out how to do it. And I have contemplated just peeing my pants, which is pretty desperate. But I'm thinking about it. Stoked I'm almost back to my car. Well, to my bike and then my car. I'm legitimately having a lot of trouble getting dressed. It actually got kind of grim there for a second. I was like, whoa, this is I'm legitimately freaking cold, That's crazy. That's as straight as I can get my fingers on that side. They're just just so fucked that I can't even bend it. Oh.
For those of you who have been following my journey for a while, I hear you asking a very legitimate question. Sure, I learned how to fish and I tweaked my knee, but I'm still spending all of my time out in the mountains pursuing the same goals and objectives that I've been chasing for years. So what really distinguishes these outings from my earlier ones? My answer is that going to such a dark place foundationally shifted my worldview, and it changed how I approach so many aspects of my life. After I finished my hike for the day, I'd spend hours deeply reflecting on my conscious experience. I kept revisiting that moment where I lost all sense of control and I was very much trying to learn what I could from going to the resulting very dark place. By the nature of what I experienced, that means that I thought a lot about my mortality. I've had the opportunity to experience my consciousness near death through both lived events and meditation, and the headspace in that moment is truly unique. When I first experienced it during an electrical storm at the start of my mountain journey, I very much lived in the future. I had expectations about how my life was going to play out, and I was living in a way that would best paint this long-term picture that I had in my head. And so when my world very abruptly seemed like it would end, I realized that I hadn't yet lived this life that I was expecting to experience, and I think that that was the root of the tremendous fear that I felt that day. I had this vision of my future, and I wasn't ready to die without seeing that future become my past. Living through that storm made me realize that I don't get to choose when I die, but it naturally made me wonder. If my conscious bubble can pop at any time, how do I live a life that will allow me to feel fulfilled? How can I make my final judgment of myself a positive one, regardless of the accolades that I've achieved on paper? I believe the only way is to be fully engaged in this moment, to make life a continuous dance, giving focused attention to the current reality, regardless of what I'm doing. In many ways, this is the pursuit of continual flow. Now, flow is a state where you become so entranced by something that time just melts away, and your full attention is engaged in that event. It's this beautiful state for the mind to occupy, and because it fully engages the entire consciousness, it results in what seem like very deep and meaningful experiences. And through all of my reflections, I've realized that flow and focus on the present are synonymous. They're both living fully in the now. Future goals and objectives are worth pursuing because they give direction to life. But I genuinely think that completion of those goals should not be the focus of the conscious experience. Unlike this very second, the future is simply not guaranteed. And so only by tuning into the present can I guarantee that I'll have lived the fullest life when death inevitably comes. By focusing on now, I won't be waiting in anticipation of some future that may or may not happen. And so in my final moments, when I make that final, honest judgment of myself, I won't feel the fear and disappointment of not having lived one specific future. I'll simply feel grateful towards the life that I have lived because I've been so engaged, and I'll be stoked that I was able to have my conscious experience.
Doesn't get much faster than that, that's for sure. Still worked. Sick! Yay! With this, I have 2 to go. 1 more day. Hancock Peak. You. Boom. It is September 29th, and I'm gonna go do Ouray Peak and some 13er. Now, I originally thought until yesterday, while I was on top of Hancock Peak, that today was going to be the last day of hiking for me for the Sawatch group. Back in the day, I made a map of all the 13ers, and I split the peaks into different mountain ranges somehow on Caltopo. And in the process of doing that, I dropped the southernmost peak in the Sawatch range because it's kind of all by itself and it's not very obvious. But as I was sitting on Hancock yesterday, looking at this group, I saw it. And I was like, that looks like it's taller than 13,000. It was a big mountain. I was like, is there really nothing over there? And it turns out that there is. I've been pushing very hard, and so my body's very fatigued. Like, I can just tell that that I did not build up to this. And now here I am out for literally like 30 to 40 hours a week walking through the hills. My quads are freaking toasted. My hammies are toasted. My calves are on fire right now. But it looks like it's gonna be another all-time day. This is properly steep. Very, very steep. You're A, and that one behind it. 2 left. Actually, 2 left this time. Top of Ure, which is my second to last peak. I thought it was going to be the last until yesterday. Over there we got all the Sawatch. Oh, back in right after COVID, like I thought I got to do all the peaks really fast, and doing it really slow, and climbing a peak here and there and repeating a bunch of them just because they're great, they're fun, or they have cell service. One of those 3 things. It seems like a much better way to do it. Several years into this mountain adventure that I'm partaking, like, with my life, I'm slowing down a lot. I've slowed down in that I'll just, if I see some mushrooms, I'll like stop and look at the mushrooms, or if I see some trees, or I smell a ponderosa pine, like I'll walk over to it and sniff it because I like how it smells. Or I'll stop and I'll sit up here, up high, and just like look out on a nice day like this and be like, yeah, man, yeah, you go, Earth. Like, look at all that, There's so much stuff to like check out. And as I've gotten older, that's what I mean is I've slowed down. I feel like every year, every month, I become more and more just an observer of where I am. can carry myself to these places so that I can see these really cool things. And as I've gotten older, I just, I don't know. I just appreciate it like way, way more than I used to. There's a very deep beauty in the complexity of the natural world. And I'm very, very honored that I have the chance to just observe that and be in its awe. It seems like a more fulfilling way to do it, to stop and smell the trees and identify the mushrooms, you know? Yeah, not being able to run has been like, I think, good for that, you know? Because it's kind of like, well, you're forced to slow down, and even if you're hiking 4 miles an hour, which I frequently do, it's like I still have the mental capacity to like look around. If I'm running fast, then like I gotta just make sure I don't fall on my face, which is a whole different type of awesome experience, but not one that I've had this year, and it's been fine, you know. It's been like, this knee injury taught me that I just gotta be stoked on it all, you know, like stoked on it all, stoked on the pain, stoked on the views, stoked on the mountains, and stoked on life. That's what it's taught me, and seems to be a recurring theme. Start of the last climb. Oh, it's gonna be a good day. Good day to finish the Sawatch range. Get excited. There she is, Antora Peak. I feel stoked. One more climb. Oh my God. It's a proper stick. Ah, yes. Let's get a hand on this one. Boom. Sawatch range. Done. Yeah! Woo! This is wild. I feel very emotional, even though it's not like, it doesn't even really matter. It's just like it's just a list of rocks in an arbitrary zone above an arbitrary elevation. And it's like, it's just so, it's so silly. But yet I feel very, very emotional. I'm just stoked. I've climbed all the mountains over there. All of them. I think ultimately, like, this entire experience can kind of be summarized as going to the really dark place that I went to back at the start of the season. It kind of removed this veil of ignorance that I had about death. Like, at some point, it's just going to be over. And so I've reflected a lot on what that means for my current life, because I feel that it was such a profound sensation to experience my world crumble away that it should impact how I exist. Like, I feel that I need to learn some lesson out of it. And that lesson seems to be to live more in the present. You know, I've done a lot of, I guess, philosophizing, and I've tried to learn from other people's experiences. And I recognize that what I'm saying is not unique, but it's a profound thing to appreciate it. It's a profound thing to go through an experience where it fundamentally shakes you to your core, such that you recognize that reality. And I feel very fortunate that I learned that now. You know, it's like, I'm only 26. I got a long ways to go. And I feel like that lesson, and really ingraining that lesson like into the fiber of my being, I think it was really good. And I have to admit that living through the experience it's always going to be way more profound than, you know, watching a film about someone experience it. But also living through that experience is kind of a drag. Like, I'm going to be honest. I don't want anyone to go through that, you know. It's been a tricky tale to try to tell, but I hope that it's impacted someone. And I hope that, you know, if you're still here watching this at the end, like, you'll take, I don't know, 15 seconds after this. Notice your surroundings. Notice, like, where you're sitting. Notice the noises in the background, you know. Notice the present that you're currently existing, and just kind of tune in for a second and be like, all right, you know, consciousness isn't so bad. it's actually really cool. So that's my hope. Yeah, if you've watched all the way to the end, thank you. I like, you know, I put a lot of work into this, and so if you're still here watching it, like, thank you. I really appreciate it, and I hope it impacted you on some level. And I hope that, you know, if not, you got a good laugh out of my suffering there for a bit. So, yeah, that's all I got. Stay stoked on life. Our consciousness is a pretty rad thing to experience.
I just had a revelation about how ridiculous this must seem from the outside. I'm just like this haggard dude carrying hardly anything. Just climbed a mountain. Freaking worked. And I'm just like walking downhill through this forest. I have a phone, a camera, a jacket, a buff, these 2 poles, and like my other clothes and some shoes. And my jacket is falling off and I don't even care. I care so little, I'm not even gonna put it back on. Oh, at least it's flat and it opens up. Whee!